Joining me right now is the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Right now, Mr. President, thank you so much for calling in this morning.
Good, thank you very much. Good morning.
It's great to have you here to get a reaction to what we're seeing on the other side. What is your reaction to Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's running mate?
Well, she's radical left. Now she tries to pretend she's not, but she's the most liberal person in the U.S. Senate, acknowledged to be. She's done things that are terrible in terms of the police, in terms of the Second Amendment, in terms of everything else. And she is a big taxer, as Joe is a big taxer. They want to tax $4 trillion. It's going to be the biggest tax increase in history by far. It will triple up records. And they're big taxers. It's just something that won't work. You will see a depression, the likes of which you have never seen. You'll have to go back to 1929. I guess it doesn't get too much worse than that. And you'll just see that. And frankly, we've had a tremendous market. You and I have talked about that, the stock market. Think of it, we're almost back to where we were, and we're still in the pandemic, which will be going away. As I say, it'll be going away, and they scream, "How can you say that?" I said, because it's going to be going away. But, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and yet we're going to be hitting records. I guess NASDAQ already has many times, like 14 times, and the Dow is, you take a look at the numbers I see for the first time today, it's actually down a few points. I'm shocked, almost shocked to see that. But we've been going up. I think we're up 9,000 points, 54% since March. So somebody made a lot of money. And I hope those 401k people didn't do anything when it got down, when it dipped, because they'll be very unhappy right now. But if they stayed with Trump, they're very rich.
So, this market is trading higher, I guess, on the anticipation that the economy is going to come back in second half or in 2021, as well as, of course, these rock-bottom interest rates. Do you have confidence that we are going to see a double-digit growth number in the second half? What does 2021 look like, in your view, from an economic standpoint, Mr. President? So
I think it depends on who wins. I think if he wins, you're going to end up with a disaster, to be honest. I see his plans. The new Green Deal is something that the likes of which nobody can even comprehend. It's like drawn by children. It's drawn by children. It's so ridiculous, okay? You go over point, and they're actually serious about it. I used to think they were playing games. It was politics. I don't even think it's good politics. It's so ridiculous. But they're talking about no fossil fuels, which means basically no energy. You'd have to close down half of the businesses of the country. You have to rebuild cities because too much light gets through the windows, so let's make the windows nice and small. Let's rip down the Empire State Building and replace it with no windows. The whole thing is so preposterous. It's so crazy. And I guess you're talking about $100 trillion, right, to do it, assuming you did it, which will never happen, by the way. But I will tell you, right. No airplanes. Let's not get more than one car. I'm sure the car business would love that. Let's everyone get a car and live by it. The cows, I don't know if they actually put the cows in. They were getting hit very hard by the animal rights groups, but they don't want to have cows. They don't want to have any form of animals. These people are crazy, okay? And this is what we're getting. And it's amazing the way Sleepy Joe buys into it. He buys into it like, oh, great. He doesn't know what he's doing. And now you have a sort of a mad woman, I call her, because she was so angry and such hatred with Justice Kavanaugh. I've never seen anything like it. She was the angriest of the group, and they were all angry. They were all radical left angry people. And they're angry because I beat them. Yeah. They still haven't forgotten. These are seriously ill people. But if you look at her record is a terrible record. And I'll tell you a good poll, because the real poll, we're doing very well on the polls, and they love the suppression polls. This is almost like a replay of 4 years ago. They said I was going to lose every swing state the day before. He will lose every swing state. It will be a very short evening. Right. Except I won every swing state, every single one of them, and most of them pretty easily. You take a look at some of these swing states. I won them easy. and I got 306. Remember, they said the night before the election, there is no way he gets to 270. Yeah, I didn't. I got to 306 in the Electoral College.
Well,
so,
you know what?
I mean, it's crazy. These people are crazy.
It's partly because you focused on jobs and you made campaign promises to people about bringing the economy back, which is exactly what happened after the tax legislation, the deregulation, and your policies around energy. But, Mr. President, yesterday, both Biden and Harris took shots at you saying, look, 40 million people are out of work. He drove this economy into the ground. What do you want to say to them, knowing that before the coronavirus, we were talking about the best economy any of us had seen, or certainly in a generation, but today's numbers do not reflect that, and they've got that to throw on you, which is what they're doing.
Well, they really don't, though, because nobody's buying it. Look, we got hit by the China plague, and we're not going to forget it. We got hit by the China plague. I built the greatest economy in history, greatest job numbers, greatest stock market numbers, greatest economic numbers. Nobody's ever seen it. I was cruising to election. They weren't even going to be a factor. George Washington would have had a hard time winning. You know that. We were cruising. You had to see the numbers. And it wasn't even going to be a factor. And the market was going to go through the roof because he is an overhang. You know, having Joe Biden is a big overhang. Even on the numbers that you put up every day that are so good, there's an overhang because if he got in, the numbers would go down thousands of points if he ever won the election. So it's an overhang because certainly there's a chance that could happen. And that's holding back. That's a headwind. That's holding back the market. As believe it or not, as good as the market's been, it's up 50% since March. As I guess 9,000, I think it's, like 9,000 points. You never saw anything like it. I'm talking about the new ones going up faster. So
no, it is 50%. You're right.
I'll be doing it, Maria. I'll be doing it twice. I will have rebuilt it twice. But nobody blames me. Even the radical left crazies out there. This is the first time I've heard this attack. Nobody's blaming me for the fact that the call it whatever you want, the China virus. There's 20 names for it. You have your pick of names, right? I call it generally the China virus. Came out of China, should have never been allowed to happen. But the fact is this plague came in, and I closed it up, saved millions of lives. Now we're reopening, and I don't know if you saw yesterday, but I put up charts that were incredible. You talk about a V, that's like a super V. And we're coming back strong. Mm-hmm. And my biggest headwind is Biden because everyone knows that if Biden gets in, this market's going to crash. He's going to build regulations, and his taxes, he's going to tax people $4 trillion. $4 trillion. That will destroy this economy, the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. $4 trillion in taxes. So I don't think, in the old days when you were... Go ahead.
Yep. He is trying to appeal to the
in the old days when you were going to build,
Mr. President,
when you were a politician, you talked about tax cuts. You didn't talk about tax increases. I've never heard of a politician that got elected. We are going to increase your taxes. This guy's going around, and I'm not saying, I'm not trying to. I've never seen it before. He got on television 2 days ago. He says, "No, we're going with tax increases," and I'm looking around. I'm going, maybe we're from a different school. He is going to give not tax increases, massive tax increases to pay for AOC's plan. AOC was a poor student. I won't say where she went to school. It doesn't matter. This is not even a smart person, other than she's got a good line of stuff. I mean, she goes out and she yaps. These guys, and they're all afraid of her, because if you notice, all of these progressives are beating the regular Democrats. You look at Elliot Engel, poor Elliot Engel. He's still going, what happened? What happened? Has anybody seen what happened? What are the results? He lost Elliot. He got wiped out.
That's right.
So these people are scaring.
And he was all the way to the left.
Schumer's going to get beaten. Yeah, and Schumer's going to get beaten by her. She's going to run against Schumer. And he knows that. And he's going to get beaten by her. Unless he can talk her out of doing it, he has no chance.
So you think he'll get beaten this November?
Chuck Schumer will be, in my opinion, AOC will run against Chuck Schumer for the Senate. Yeah. I mean, I think she'll win.
Yes. Okay. Mr.
Of course,
President,
she's
you
done
just
so
mentioned
many bad
spending. I
things.
want to
Who
get your
knows
take
whether or
on the
not she'll get
stimulus.
there? Who knows
And
whether or
what
not she'll
happened in
get there?
terms of the breakdown in talks on the stimulus. Tell me about that, because that's another thing that they were complaining about you yesterday, saying, well, he's not there negotiating. We want to get something done. The Democrats have put on the table this $3 trillion plan. What specifically are they pushing for that is causing this breakdown in any deals? Nancy Pelosi said that the Democrats want to, and the White House are still miles apart on stimulus.
Well, they're right, and it's their fault. They want $3.5 billion for something that'll turn out to be fraudulent. That's election money, basically. They want $3.5 billion for the mail-in votes. Okay, universal mail-in ballots. They want $25 billion for the post office. Now, they need that money in order to have the post office work so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. Now, in the meantime, they aren't getting there. By the way, those are just two items. But if they don't get those two items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting because they're not equipped to have it. And you see how bad it's been with this Carolyn Maloney scam. She scammed her way into an election. She probably lost, but they said mail-in ballots. It's all mixed up. Paterson, New Jersey, same thing. Yesterday, Virginia, 500,000 applications for ballots got sent to everybody. Nobody even knows. Got sent to dogs, got sent to dead people. Nobody has no idea what happened. They said, oh, we made a mistake. I'm sorry. 500,000 ballots sent in Virginia. How do you feel about Virginia going in there and you have 500,000 phony ballot applications? And this is all over.
So this is what's holding it up? They want...
No.
So,
That's
Mr.
only
President,
one
this
aspect
is what's
of it.
holding up money for the American people. They want mail-in votings and they want money for the post office. This is one of the sticking points that's holding back stimulus for Americans during this coronavirus. The Democrats wanting money for the post office for mail-in voting.
That's one of them. That's right. How would you like to have, Maria, how would you like to have $3.5 billion for mail-in voting? Billion. So if you didn't have it, you wouldn't. You know how much money that is? Nobody has any idea. You know, people, $3.5 billion. They want $25 billion for the post office because the post office is going to have to go to town to get these ridiculous ballots in. You know, there's nothing wrong with getting out and voting. You get out and vote. They voted during World War I and World War II, and they should have voter ID because the Democrats scammed the system. But two of the items are the post office and the $3.5 billion for mail-in voting. Now, if we don't make a deal, that means they don't get the money. That means they can't have universal mail-in voting. They just can't have it. So, you know, sort of a crazy thing.
How many states will be doing?
Those are two of the items, but there are many more items.
Legislature. But how many states are going to be doing mail-in voting, Mr. President? A.G. Barr told me that this opens the floodgates of fraud. How many states are you expecting mail-in voting to take place in?
Well, you have California where they're sending out tens of millions of ballots. They have no idea where they're going, or maybe they do. Maybe they'll go to everybody but Republicans. But they have California. They have many states where you're going to have. Now, I will say it, we're challenging in court. We're challenging in court. So it's being challenged by at many different levels. We have many lawsuits out there. This will be the greatest fraud in history. This will be the most fraudulent. This will be almost as fraudulent as Obama spying on my campaign, but not quite. This will be the greatest fraud in history.
Well, I'm going to get to that. And then there's the issue around federal IDs. You don't even need an ID in some places to actually vote. Yeah. You need an ID for everything, but they don't want people to have identification to show that you are who you say you are when you go to vote.
It's called voter ID. It's the greatest thing there is. Everybody knows it. Some states like Indiana, some very well-run states have it, but many don't. And the Democrats are fighting it tooth and nail because they cheat. There's only one reason to fight it. They cheat. If you don't cheat, you want to have voter ID. But many people vote. If you look at California, we found over 1 million votes in Los Angeles, over 1 million. Judicial Watch did. They were a fantastic job they did. Tom Fitton and that group. They did a fantastic job. Found over 1 million votes where people were over 100 years old and they were voting. They had people, I think, 124 years old. No, it's ridiculous. It's a terrible thing that's happened, and the Democrats don't want to fix it.
Mr. President, let me ask you about these tariffs, because you've said that tariffs will remain in place for European Union products, despite efforts by Airbus to move into compliance with the World Trade Organization. What is this about? The Europeans are giving and subsidizing Airbus. You are keeping the amount of products subject to countermeasures unchanged, $7.5 billion of goods coming from Europe.
Well, we won that in a lawsuit because they cheated. The European Union is almost as bad as China. You know, everybody doesn't like it when I say that. They say they're our allies. Well, they take advantage of us tremendously on NATO. You know, they don't pay their dues. Germany is delinquent for billions and billions and billions of dollars, and we're supposed to protect them. And they pay a lot of money to Russia for oil and gas, the pipeline. They pay money to Russia, billions and billions of dollars, and then we're supposed to protect them from Russia. And on top of everything else, they're very delinquent. They're paying 1%. They're supposed to pay 2%, and the real number should be 4 or 5. So we get it from every different corner. Now, I caught it. I'm wise to it. And you have a lot of stupid people out there that say, oh, I'm not treating Germany right. I'm not being nice to France, and they take it. And by the way, I'm very friendly with all the people, and they know. They smile at me when I look at them. They said nobody's ever talked to us like you do. You know, I got NATO to pay $400 billion more a year. My biggest fan in the world is Secretary General Stoltenberg of NATO. He says, I can't believe it, because we were going down every year for 20 years. It was going down, 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 what they were paying for protection. And I came in, and it looks like a rocket ship up. But still, Germany's not paying anywhere near what they're supposed to. I use the word delinquent. They're delinquent.
Well,
they don't pay.
Yep, You have also changed the conversation on China, sir. I want to talk to you about that. We've got trade talks slated to take place later this week. Beijing officials are saying that they plan to bring up your ban on American businesses conducting transactions with WeChat and TikTok. The Journal is reporting this morning major corporations like Apple, Disney, Walmart expressing concerns over WeChat in particular. Mr. President, are you planning to narrow the ban? Tell us the threat around WeChat and TikTok.
Well, we lose for many years $400, $500, $300, $200 billion a year, with China, dealing with China, first of all, before we even get into security. It's been a ripoff, the likes of which the world has never seen. And I charge massive tariffs, and they paid us just tens of billions of dollars in tariffs. As you know, they targeted our farmers, and I gave our farmers all of the money that they got targeted for, which was $28 billion over a 3-year period. So I gave the money to the farmers. That's why the farmers love Trump, because I took care of them as opposed to other administrations that forget about the farmers. But I took good care of them. But I took it out of China. Now, we're getting right now, under the trade deal, people don't know. They said, like Schumer had no idea. He was saying that we don't get tariffs anymore. He didn't like tariffs. Then when I charged him, all of a sudden he thought it was great because so much money comes into us. But then when I made the deal, I left the tariffs on, which nobody still understands. How did I make the deal and still leave the tariffs on? And they're buying a lot of corn, et cetera, et cetera. But with all of that, my mindset has changed on China since they allowed the plague to come in and have such a devastating effect on the world, us and the world, which is terrible. But no, I view China differently than I did. It's before plague and after plague. Right now, I view China differently than I did before plague.
So we just spoke with Jimmy Lai. He's been on the front lines of the Hong Kong protests. He spoke out about what he wants the U.S. to know about the Communist Party, and he also took real issue with Xi Jinping being dictator for life. Here's Jimmy Lai with me just 20 minutes ago, sir. Listen to this.
It's difficult for them to change, especially when Xi Jinping is the president. Xi Jinping is totally the Mao Zedong kind of hardcore communist. He wants to bring China back to the Mao time. All the control that he's increasing is exactly the way that Mao was controlling the country.
So, Mr. President, he's talking about Xi Jinping as being the problem because he's dictator for life, wanting to take China back to the Mao dynasty. Would you like to see Xi Jinping step down, Mr. President?
Look, they're running their country, and we're running our country. And we have other countries that treat us very badly. They treat us like children because we had foolish leadership. I'm being nice when I use the word foolish, but we've had very foolish leadership at the top, at the presidential level. And all of these countries, from China to Vietnam to all the Asian countries and others, many others, have taken advantage of us. We straightened it out with Mexico and with Canada. We have the new USMCA. We were in the process of straightening it out with China, and then the plague came. But even before that, I had a complete deal with China, and 4 days before it was going to be signed, they broke it. You know, they broke the deal I had, so I had to deal with them. Hong Kong is a very complex problem because we've given tremendous amounts of money in the form of incentives to make Hong Kong free, to make Hong Kong work, and to our detriment. So I have taken all that back, all of those incentives that they had for the Hong Kong market in order to keep a certain amount of freedom over there, knowing they have China looming over the top of them. But all of those incentives, billions and billions and billions of dollars we gave to Hong Kong, I've taken back now because Hong Kong is, if you use a business term, it's owned by China. So why should I give this to China? Hong Kong can never succeed without those incentives, and Hong Kong can never succeed having China, as opposed to the thousands of geniuses that ran it, having China run it. So what does it mean for the United States in a very practical sense? It means that our markets are going to make a lot more money. They're going to use the New York Stock Exchange. They're going to use NASDAQ. They're going to use our markets. And the Hong Kong markets will go to hell. Nobody's going to do business. Very few people are going to do business in Hong Kong anymore. So we've taken it back, and we are going to make billions and billions of dollars more because we've taken away all of these very expensive incentives. We gave that to them, and I fully understood it, and I still understand. I was okay with it. But once China got aggressive and took it over, I took everything back. Everything's back now, and it will fail.
But look how aggressive they are in America. Look at how aggressive they are in America, able to get insiders at corporations, whether it's Harvard and the head of the chemistry department, Cleveland Clinic, Houston Consulate, getting insiders in corporations to steal intellectual property and send it back to the CCP. What happens if Microsoft acquires TikTok? How many TikTok employees will be working for Microsoft and able to send data back to the CCP? Will you allow Microsoft to acquire TikTok?
So first of all, the first thing, we have got those people, and they're being prosecuted under this administration. They're being prosecuted, number one. Number two,
That's
TikTok, I broke the deal. I said you can't do business in the United States. I also said to Huawei, you can't do business in the United States. And I told our so-called allies that are all over the world, all of which, for the most part, take advantage of us. We have good allies. We have some very good allies, but some are, they take advantage of us because for so many years they were allowed to just absolutely rip us off. But I've told them, I said, if you go with Huawei, that's okay, but we're not going to be communicating having to do with intelligence because the intelligence goes right into Beijing, okay? And we don't want that. And, we know that. And we have better scientists than they do. We have better engineers than they do. We know exactly what happens. So we explained that to Europe and others, and for the most part, they're not buying Huawei. And if they do, we'll have to cut off intelligence because the intelligence, we can't have that go into Beijing. So there's been nobody tougher to China or to Russia or to anybody else than I have. Despite a media that's bought out by China, much more so than Russia. Do you ever notice they always say Russia, Russia, Russia? They don't mention China, 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 because most of these people, like you look at the NBA, they're bought off by China. And China is, the big pot of gold. So they say, let's use Russia instead of China. But China is a big problem. And I've made it a much smaller problem. The fact is that with Hong Kong, we're saving a massive amounts of billions of dollars, and it's not going to work. It can't work. It's all based on the dollar. I've made the dollar stronger. I've made the dollar stronger to a point that there is almost no secondary currency. The dollar is stronger now than it's ever been, and it will be even stronger in my second term. And I don't mean just from a price standpoint. I'm talking about the pedigree of the dollar. Unless a Biden gets in with his stupid taxes, he wants to he'll tax this country into a depression like in 1929. If you do what he wants to do, his plan, and I've been pretty good, you have to say, Maria, at predicting things. I've been pretty good, including saying I was going to win the election, and I'm going to win it a second time, by the way. Because, you know, one of the reasons I'm going to win a second time is people have made a fortune with me, and they don't want their 401ks going down by 75, 80% or more, and that's what's going to happen. Regulations and taxes. He's going to regulate everything, put everything back times two. I cut more regulations than any president in history by far. We're going to continue cutting regulations.
You talked about capital gains tax cuts. You've talked about payroll tax cut. You've talked about more deregulation. What are the plans for the second term agenda, Mr. President?
Well, I've done the payroll tax cut temporary. You know, this is a temporary payroll tax cut, but this is a very substantial positive jolt to the economy. I'm going to do a capital gains tax cut to 15% in second term. We're going to get it down to 15. It's at 21. We'll get that down to 15%, and I'll get that done easily. We're going to take the House. I believe we're going to take back the House because Nancy Pelosi is stone cold crazy, and I think we're going to take the House, and that's upon, you know, I don't make a statement like that very easily. But we're going to take, otherwise I'll look very bad, but we're going to take back the House. We're going to hold the presidency. And we're fighting very hard in the Senate, I'll be honest. The Senate is tough. We have a couple of people that aren't as supportive of Trump as they should be, and those people are going to lose their elections. If they don't support Trump, they lose their elections. It's a very simple element. Look at Haggerty in Tennessee. He was a Trump guy, and he just became, or he will become very shortly, the senator. He won the primaries the other day. You look at all of the things that have happened, but the ones that don't support, and I'm just talking, take a look, the ones that don't support, and you have a few people that want to be cute, and I think they're going to lose their elections, and that's a problem for the Senate.
Do you believe school choice will be an issue this upcoming election, given the fact that we are in this shutdown? And this is a big issue for minorities in particular.
Well, the unions own Biden. He doesn't even know it. Joe doesn't even know he's alive. But the unions own Biden. They own the radical left. They own Pelosi and Schumer. And they will do anything for the unions, including destroy the future of our children. And by the way, the union workers, I love them. They're going to have to work in schools. There's nothing more valuable than good teachers. Teachers are the whole basis for everything. I mean, we need those teachers. That's a very important thing.
Richard Trumka was on the show last week, Mr. President, and I told him that the income gap was narrowing before the coronavirus. I remember reporting on this because wages were going up so much, and he said absolutely not. It's not true. Can you talk to us about what was taking place in terms of the income gap and wages before this coronavirus? Because I was communicating this just the other day to Richard Trumka, and he said it's not true.
Look, he totally controls Nancy Pelosi. In fact, when we did the USMCA, he had to sign off on it for her. She wouldn't do it unless he signed off. And he's a good guy, but he's a union guy. You know, he's good, but he's a union guy. He does what he can do. But if you look at really what was happening before, we were actually this country was coming together before China sent over the plague. This country was coming together because of success. Somebody said, how can the country heal? I said, one word, success. And it was happening. You know that. It was happening. We were getting closer. People were calling me that, I'm talking about Democrats that were calling me and talking in a way that was very different from what it had been because we had the best employment numbers. We had the best employment numbers we've ever had. We had the best numbers we've ever had. We had the best stock market numbers we've ever had, which now looks like they're going to be supplanted by what we have now, if you can even believe that. But we had the best success we've ever had, and this country was coming together. And then the plague hit us from China, a gift from China. And now we're rebuilding it, and it's going up like a V, like a rocket. And you look at those numbers on automobiles,
but even in the
on
face
employment.
of all of this, you've gotten so much done, economic policy, foreign policy, naming judges, and in the face of all of this resistance, first you had the resistance from inside your own government. You had the FBI working with the Hillary Clinton campaign. She paid for the dossier. They used it to help entrap your campaign. Then you had the media piling on. Then you had an impeachment trial with no crimes. The articles of impeachment were abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Then you had China throw the curveball at you with the virus. Democrat mayors and governors refusing to stop crime and vandalism. This is all your first term. What was most surprising to you as you look toward this new election? What was most difficult and most surprising for you in this last 3.5 years, Mr. President?
And by the way, when they say abuse of power on impeachment, that was it was a phony, fake impeachment. It was a disgrace. On a phone call, there was an absolutely perfect phone call.
Right.
I'm the only one to get impeached on a perfect phone call. I like a perfect phone call, and I got impeached because of the level of hatred. But when they say abuse of power, the abuse of power is that I get everything done. I'm going to have over 300 judges by the end of the first term. Nobody's ever seen that before. I'm going to have 2 Supreme Court judges, justices, and we'll have literally over 300 judges, including Court of Appeals. We've done things that nobody's ever done. The tax cuts, the regulation cuts, ANWR. Look at ANWR. They couldn't get ANWR done. Ronald Reagan couldn't get it done. Bush's nobody could get it done, and I got ANWR done.
But there was still a coup against you. There was still a coup against you, is my point. Where is John Durham, Mr. President? Is he? Where is John Durham? We know that there was criminality.
I hope he's doing a great job, and I hope they're not going to be politically correct, and I hope they do what? Because the fact is, this was President Obama knew everything. Vice President Biden, as dumb as he may be, he knew everything, and everybody else knew everything, Maria, and you know it. And Comey and Brennan and Clapper, they all were terrible, and they lied to Congress, and they put Flynn. They want to put Flynn in jail, and he didn't lie because the FBI said he didn't lie, and we just found that out. You know, it was only Mueller that said he lied. And they said he didn't lie, and they're trying to destroy that man's life, and other people that got in trouble that did nothing by comparison, and in many cases nothing or nothing in comparison. They spied on my campaign, which is treason. They spied both before and after I won. Think of that. Using the intelligence apparatus of the United States to take down a president, a legally elected president, a duly elected president of the United States. It's the single biggest political crime in the history of our country, and I hope they're doing a job. I hope they're not going to be politically correct and say, well, you know, we want to go let's get the lower guys that forged the documents going into FISA. Let's just get a couple of the lower guys. I hope they're not going to be. Bill Barr can go down as the greatest attorney general in the history of our country, or he can go down as just an average guy. It depends on what's going to happen.
Do you want to see a special counsel put in place to ensure that the American people find out what took place here? We know that there was an FBI agent who actually changed documents, changed evidence. We know that there was lying to the court, lying to the Congress, leaking to the media. If you do not win in November, we're not going to hear another word about this. So should AG Barr put in a special counsel to ensure that this is...
They'll probably cancel it out, almost definitely, and it's a shame. It's a shame, but we caught him. Look, we caught him. Carter Page, they just used him to spy on the campaign. Others they used to spy on the campaign. It's a disgrace, and it can either be unbelievable. They don't need a special counsel. First of all, they have a special counsel working, and they have Durham working, so they don't need another special counsel. We've had enough special counsels, and frankly, everybody knows if you didn't have one bit of evidence from what you already know from reading the newspapers, they're all guilty as hell. The insurance policy, where in case she loses, we've got an insurance policy, we're going to go and take them out. You know that. That's what that meant. That was with Strzok and Page, the two lovers, the two great lovers that got caught. I hope everybody
yes. Do you think the Mueller
that.
report, was the Mueller investigation just a cover-up for what they had done? Because the Mueller investigation, we're getting all of the documents now where we're getting this declassification of documents, and so we know, oh, yes, they lied to the Senate. Oh, yes, they lied to the FISA court. All of this stuff was available when Mueller was doing the investigation, so how come he didn't unearth any of this? Was that just an opportunity to just have all of the documents frozen as a cover-up for what they did to you?
Because they were only interested in anything having to do with Trump, even though they knew all of this stuff. Strzok and Page, their text message were all deleted by Mueller. Mueller went in himself and he lied to Congress because he said he didn't apply for a job to head the FBI, and he did. And we have absolute proof of that. He came in looking to run the FBI early on. The following day, he was given the job as the special prosecutor. I call it prosecutor because it's not a counsel. They say special counsel. It's really a prosecutor. So he was given the just, I want to be more accurate. And with all of that that they did, think of it. They spent $48 million plus. You don't even know what they spent. Looked at everything. They looked at my taxes, I'm sure. They looked at everything. With all of that, no collusion. I have a friend who's a very sophisticated man, one of the most successful people. You know him very well. He said, you have to be the most honest person in the world to escape the greatest witch hunt ever perpetrated in the history of our country, to go over every document, every phone call, everything you've ever done. And they say, no collusion. I did nothing wrong. They said, I never knew you were that honest. He said, you must be the most honest man in the world. And so then they take it down and they send it to New York. Well, listen, we couldn't find anything. Let's send it into New York, into the Democrat lion's den. So they play games there for years. It's a disgrace. What's going on in this country, we've got to stop it. We've got to stop it. And we're getting close.
But, Mr. President, we know.
It's a disgrace.
But, Mr. President, we know that the FBI lied to the Senate in February of 2018. Christopher Wray was running the FBI, Mr. President. Is Christopher Wray hiding all of this stuff and protecting the FBI? Should he step down?
So Christopher Wray was put there. We have an election coming up. I wish he was more forthcoming. He certainly hasn't been. There are documents that they want to get and that we have said we want to get. We're going to find out if he's going to give those documents, but certainly he's been very, very protective. He was put there for good reason. He was chosen by a certain person, and I said, go ahead, put whoever you want. I'm so honest that I said, you could put anybody you want. Let's see how Ray turns out. He's going to either turn out one way or the other. But I'll tell you, Bill Barr and Durham have a chance to be Bill Barr has a chance to be the greatest of all time. But if he wants to be politically correct, he'll be just another guy. Because he knows all the answers. He knows what they have. And it goes right to Obama, and it goes right to Biden. They had the meetings. That was one meeting they caught him. They had many meetings.
That's right. We have it all on a timeline right here. And, Mr. President, I know that we're going to be wrapping up soon, but I just want to get your take on these debates. There's this movement now in the media trying to get Joe Biden to not debate you. And then you announced yesterday initiatives to help get kids back to school. If you could just touch on these two topics before we wrap up here, sir. First off, are you planning these? Are we going to have a debate, you and Biden?
Well, I want a debate.
3 debates?
I would say the only problem with the debates is we should have one debate. Move it forward, have an extra one. I don't care. 3 debates is fine, or make it 4. But we should have one before the ballots start going out. These phony ballots, they go out, and we should have a debate before the ballots. We have a debate a month after the ballots start going out. So people are voting without seeing the debate. So I think they should move one debate forward or have an extra one, put it. But I want to do the debates. And they are trying to get out of the debates. There's no question about that. I have people that are very good at this stuff. So am I. And I will tell you, they would love to get out of the debates, unfortunately. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you have debated pretty aggressively in the past. You've also announced yesterday initiatives to help get kids back in the classroom. Tell me about that. This includes sending 125 million reusable masks. Go ahead.
I want to get the schools open. They should be open. The children, if you look, Statistically, it's incredible how strong they are. Their immune systems, they're incredible. We have to get our schools open. We have to get our country open. And a lot of the reason it's not happening is because blue state governors, if you take a look at some of the Democrat governors, they don't want their state open because they think that hurts me on November 3rd. And I think people are wise to it. Our country is going to be stronger than it's ever been next year. We're going to have one of the best years, maybe as good as last year. It's incredible what's happening. And when you look at the numbers on cars, on everything, retail sales, you look at the employment numbers, we set a record. We're going up despite the Democrats. This is like I built the wall despite the Democrats. Now nobody wants to talk about it anymore. But despite the Democrats, they don't talk about the wall anymore. Do you notice? They used to talk about it. Now they don't because it's going to be completed very soon. But despite the Democrats, we have a V going like nobody thought even possible. They're impossible. They're very difficult people. I sometimes think they don't love the country, but they're doing the wrong thing. But in the meantime, I do love your show, and I think you're fantastic.
Mr. President, thank you so much for the time this morning. Thanks for your leadership, sir. We'll be watching. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks a lot. Bye.